Thank you.
We are back with Dana Hubbard, part 2, the interview, where we put you in the hot seat and ask you all kinds of questions that you might not want to answer.
Well,
No,
we'll
just
see.
kidding. We'll be gentle, very gentle. So, you have come from California, and I know that you have been in California a good bit of your life, but you also have some Texas roots.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us kind of about your background a little bit as far as where you live and where you've been.
Well, I was born on the central coast of California. Well, actually, I was actually born in Stockton, which is flat and hot, and I always loved touring the arid Southwest, and I finally figured out why. Because I spent the first 9 months in my mom's womb and the first year of my life in hot, dry climate, So when I got to Amarillo, it wasn't any different,
Yeah, there you go.
And so, but I spent. My parents moved to Monterey, California, when I was a year old, and that's where I essentially grew up. And I went to school at Santa Cruz, and so I'm from there. Is the way I look at it. But I went to UC Santa Cruz, but I never went to class. I went to one extension class I finished, and that was on country blues, and so then I dropped out, hit the road, and that never went back into academia, which killed my parents because they were both college graduates, and my dad was a PhD professor. And later, not at that time, but later, he told me that the bottom of his world dropped out when I said I wasn't going to continue school.
That's nice to guilt you with.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he also guilted me plenty. And, when we were at that Hammer and Tongs space, and I remember I sold a motorcycle, and I was going to take all the money and spend it on the best guitar I could find, a Martin D28. And he said, if you spend all that money on a guitar, we can't help you through school. And I know as soon as the words were out of his mouth, he wanted them back. Because I said, fine, no problem. Then the other thing he said, when I said I was going to move to the San Francisco Bay Area and play music, he said, you'll be back. And that was the best thing he could have said, because I was determined at that point. But then, to give credit where credit's due, when they saw me hanging in there, because they had both been professional musicians themselves. Okay. And when they saw me hanging in there, they became very supportive because they knew what it was like.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
So what? You were in California. You were playing music. You said you got on the road. Is that what led you to Texas?
Well, what led me to Texas? I went to the Bay Area, and at first I was kind of doing other things, solo stuff. But then I was so frustrated with the music business. I said, if I'm going to do this at all, I'm going to do something that means something to me. And I started playing blues. And that led to me finding a real niche in the Bay Area, which lasted into the 90s. And I loved it. I'm hesitating because I can just yak. I apologize. Well, there was a blues show on the local KPFA station in Berkeley every Monday, I think from 1 to 3 or something, I remember it was 2 hours, and I would tape that thing, and that was in the cassette days, and I would tape that show, and then that's all I would listen to all week, and then I'd tape the next one, and it was run by Tom Mazzolini, who was the local big blues promoter, and he would put on the Blues Festival every year in San Francisco, and I remember when he brought the Thunderbirds out, And so basically I was going to blues graduate school, listening to those tapes all week, And then when I first got that first album by the Thunderbirds, Girls Go Wild, you remember the vinyl? And great, quasi 50s cover on it and stuff. And I wore that sucker out. That's all I played. And I was living up in Sonoma County, which is north of San Francisco, and out on 5 acres. And there was a workroom, with tools and a bench. And I had a little Princeton guitar amp and an old funky turntable. And that's what I played that through. It wasn't stereo at all. And I just wore it out. And so we were like, man, Texas, what's going on down there, And then, of course, Stevie Ray hit the scene, and it was, I had my eye on Texas forever. And then but I didn't really get here in a serious way until I started. By the end of the 90s and in the early 2000s, I was just really fed up with being in the clubs and the bars. And I wanted to, so I decided to change and become a full solo singer-songwriter like I did tonight. Right. But I took my blues creds with me, which played well in the singer-songwriter world. But the opposite wasn't really true. The blues people, they didn't care if you wrote songs. But the blues thing played really well in the singer-songwriter world. And I started touring and doing all the festival competitions that I could find. And I would plan my tour out so that I would be in that area when they had their competition, because you don't know before you leave on your tour that you got in. Right. But I would plan the tour to be there at that time. And so Tucson was on that, then Kerrville. And then I would be up in the mountains, up in at Snowbird in Utah. And then I would try for the Oregon Sisters Folk Festival, which had a competition, and then Telluride. And so, and I always tried for Telluride Bluegrass, which is in June, but I never got in that one. So.
But you won.
Yeah, I won. I won the Telluride Blues.
That's awesome. What year was that?
2009. That was huge for me because it was my first real win. Yeah. And I mean, man, and the cool thing, if you won at Telluride, you got the purple armband. That meant you got to go backstage. I might have said this already. And that's where you got to eat the catered food. Yeah. So that was huge. Yeah. And then Bonnie Raitt was on that festival. Buddy Guy was on that festival. And I remember, because I could go backstage now with the purple armband, I went back there and I was I had never seen Bonnie Raitt. She was coming on. She was going to headline Sunday night. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to hang in there and see her. And Ruthie Foster was on Sunday. I remember talking to her out and back, and I was trying to get her to let me play harmonica for her, but she didn't. Yeah. Like when I'm at those things, I'm on the clock. Yeah. I do things that I wouldn't normally do. I wouldn't normally go up and ask Ruthie Foster if I can play harp, Mm-hmm. But now I'm like, I'm working. I'm here to do, to network and meet people. Sure. And so I take those embarrassing chances like that.
Hey, you know what? You got a 50-50 shot. It's either a yes or a no.
That's it. That's it. Right. If you don't ask, that's usually a no. But I remember it got about 3:30 in the afternoon and it was storming really bad. And I found it was so cold. I said, okay, I'm going to go. And I left. And I drove west to Moab. And I remember looking in the rearview mirror. It looked like a hydrogen bomb had gone off above, if you know where Telluride is, this kind of southwestern Colorado. Anyway, I found out later that they flew her in a helicopter. And she went on. But then they stopped her set like after the first or second song because they had to move. The band left the stage. And they took all the equipment and moved it back because all the storm was coming in the front. There's a huge stage, and it was coming in. And the intent was that she would come back, but she never did come back. Yeah. So I was kind of glad I didn't stay.
Sounds like you got out in time.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Texas is a really good place for me. The South, in general, is a really good place for the singer-songwriter. And most of the singer-songwriters that I've come across, they really have kind of a love for Texas because of, its promotion of original music and there's so many different places to play and people just kind of appreciate that. Along with Europe, people in Europe love the American singer-songwriter. Mm-hmm. So have you ever thought about touring Europe or gone that way?
Never seriously. Partly because I love touring the way I tour. Here's the strange part. I'm a homebody. I like being home. Well, and the thing is, now I bring my home with me. Sure. In the van, and so I'm happy touring that way. Europe would be a little bit different deal. Sure. I'd be like lightning. No, man, I'm going to drive. And so no, I haven't thought seriously about it. But I mean, if the offer was there, I would do it. I would grab it. Yeah. But I realized I didn't really answer your question, how I got to Texas and how Texas started figuring big in my world. And that was because every time I toured here, I would tour here every year trying to get into Kerrville. And I was doing a house concert one time, and I was whining and moaning, telling stories about that I hadn't gotten in Kerrville, and as a song finalist. And this woman out in the audience said, "Oh, I know somebody there. I'll get you in." And she, she didn't realize really the politics about that, but I liked her attitude, Yeah. Well, anyway, it turned out then we kind of got acquainted and fell in love. And in 2013, I moved to Amarillo, and we lived together. And then 2015, we married. 2018, we divorced because it went south. Yeah. And somewhere in there's a country song.
Sounds like
not sure where, But I love Texas. I feel like I'm a man with a foot in each state at this point. Yeah. And I make sure that I come here every fall because it's the nicest weather and it's the least scary storms.
Right.
So I try to tour here every fall.
Great.
Yeah.
Getting back to when you were performing with the band, were you doing covers or were you writing your songs for the band?
Kind of both.
Yeah.
And it was that fed a little bit into the frustration because I couldn't do a lot of my softer acoustic originals. Uh-huh. I love doing the covers because we would do a lot of blues. We'd cover all the main blues guys, and then I'd throw in some Hendrix and some Dylan and some Van Morrison and things like that to kind of create variety in the set. And it worked, And in a lot of clubs, you got the gigs, but don't tell them you play blues. Tell them you play rock and roll.
Oh, okay.
And then you get in, you do whatever you want. And as long as you keep people dancing,
sure,
they're not going to complain. And if you keep the liquor flowing. That was the other thing. I eventually recognized that my job was selling liquor.
Kind of.
I wasn't real happy about that. And when I started doing the house concerts and these kind of shows, now my job is to sell my songs, or my performance, and I remember when I went from the clubs to this type of environment. It didn't happen overnight, but I remember at one point, like in the clubs, it was all posturing. I had sunglasses on, and
cool factor.
Yeah, the cool factor. And when I switched to these kind of shows, I thought, well, who am I going to, what's going to be my persona? And very quickly it came to me. Just be myself, who I am with my family and close friends. And it has worked amazingly well. Absolutely. It's a much easier skin to wear. And I was just watching, probably several of you know who Tommy Emmanuel is.
Yes, love him.
He's a huge inspiration to me. So I was watching an interview that he did fairly recently. Quite a long interview. And it was surprising because he's such a positive guy. But I was a little surprised. He was actually revealing just a little bitterness about the music business, which I've never seen him do before. But it wasn't overly done.
Right.
But at the end of the interview, he said, "I have a secret." And the interviewer goes, "What?" "Be yourself." And I went, "Yes."
Yes.
So I felt very vindicated. And then, you probably know Ellis Paul? He's a singer-songwriter that's done a lot in Texas, but I think he's from the East Coast. I'm not sure. But early on, I heard a quote by him that I fell in love with. And I don't know if it's his original quote or he was quoting someone else. But he said, "The medium of the singer-songwriter is the art of being yourself." I just love that.
Great.
I mean,
yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah. Well, when you're on stage with a band and you're in a bar, people are looking for familiarity.
Oh, yeah.
They aren't looking to listen to original music. You're kind of background noise at that point. Mm-hmm. So being that it's such an art, songwriting is, and performance, that coming into a venue like this, a true listening room, wineries are usually pretty good. People want to hear it. They want to know you, and they want to know your music, and they want to know what you're saying. Get the message. I
absolutely agree. And they want to know you, like we're doing right now.
Sure.
And so that's why I started telling stories. And then, like I said, then now you can't get me to shut up. So sometimes I invite the audience, if I get to yakking too much, I invite you to tell me to shut up and play.
Yeah.
So.
The cool thing is you can get him to shut up with the California accent.
Randy's just, you can't take him anywhere,
I love him. I'm taking him in the van with me when I go.
Y'all have a good
But
time.
I'm also taking this mic, buddy. I mean, it sounds amazing.
We'll see how you respect it from here on.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
we were talking, he was explaining, don't get down on, like if you use a traditional Shure 58 or
You're
something.
right in it. Yeah.
You're right on it. And especially if you go low, you got to get right on it. And I was noticing nuances in my lower register that I never noticed.
Because it's it's getting your full range.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to find out what this mic is before I leave because I may really go and get one. I'm serious.
I'll send you. I don't remember if I got it from
Musician's Friend.
Sweetwater, but I'm sure
Yeah.
Ben at Sweetwater can find one for you.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing. And that's the thing with the Shure, like you had to get my attention.
Mm-hmm.
You're in such a habit. It's all habit up
It
here.
is.
Especially when you played clubs.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Because in clubs, you have to use those to keep from the feedback issues. But,
No,
the
you
thing is you're when you're here, you're playing for people that are listening to every word.
yeah,
And
it's-
and looking for every inflection on the guitar.
absolutely.
So we appreciate more than they appreciate out there.
Absolutely. And the
Especially
thing,
accents. Yeah.
except the accent?
No,
Is that what you
especially accents.
Well, what I realized though, this does such a good job. I'm seriously thinking of getting one because I will develop the other habit,
Yes.
and I need to develop a habit of.
Where you really have to watch it is with the harp.
Oh, okay.
Because
Was I too loud?
You know how you want to get into a microphone?
Yeah.
You can't do that at all with this. You have to play back.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even think of that. Did I play
You
too
did
loud?
fine. No. you-
Okay.
Good.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah, he's got them little controls back there too. He'll work his magic with whatever.
Does he
it
touch
is.
his buttons back there?
That's kind of a personal question, don't you think? I'm curious. How old were you when you wrote your first song?
I was probably 18.
18. And what made you think you could write?
Because everyone else was.
Oh, okay.
Because Bob Dylan was doing it, and I don't know. I never even thought. I think by the time I started thinking seriously about being a professional musician,
Mm-hmm.
it was almost assumed that you would have some originals of your own.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's good.
but I've throughout the years, I've come across information where prior to like Dylan and prior to all those people, it wasn't assumed that you wrote your own songs. It was like,
Really prior to the Beatles.
is that
Yeah.
yeah, and what's in it? Carole King. I mean, she came out of that thing where she's writing for other people. Tin Pan Alley and all that stuff. And so by the time I started doing it, which was seriously probably the early 70s, like maybe 71.
Right.
It was kind of assumed that you had some originals.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it wasn't that difficult for me to assume that mantle, if you will.
And really, the songwriters have exploded. Look at Nashville. Look at all these people vying to get their songs heard that they've written for the big artists and things like that. And I think they finally figured out, well, not everybody gets to do that, or they don't get their song chosen for this artist. So I'm good enough. Why don't I just go out and sell my stuff to everybody else, and they can make a living off of it? And apparently you've done that for all of your adult life.
Well, if I understood you correctly, I haven't sold any songs to anyone else.
Right. No.
Oh, but I'm
just
singing
saying
my own songs.
Those, yeah.
Yes.
You having your own music and sharing it with
Yes.
people and touring and things like that. You were able to have your music be heard and appreciated and purchased.
Yes.
And
presented the way.
right.
Yeah, presented the way you want.
Yes, you're quite correct, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because when I hit the road and was doing the competitions, a goal kind of coalesced in front of me, and that was to make a lot of contacts and try to get someone else to cover my songs. Mm-hmm. And that was a real goal from mid 2005 up till 2013, 14.
Yeah.
But that disappeared.
Yeah.
It disappeared with streaming.
Mm-hmm.
Because the artists weren't able to sell CDs like they used to. They sold some, but not in the quantity. And so all of a sudden the singer-songwriters they weren't making the kind of money. You know,
Right.
there was that classic check in the mail
Right.
dream, and I definitely had that dream, you know.
Sure.
And I actually got close. You know, I got close to not Keb Mo, but I got close to a connection to Keb Mo, and he was on my radar because he was kind of bluesy,
Right.
but he also was kind of singer-songwriter. And I thought, perfect, you know. And I
Yeah.
thought, and he does write some of his own songs, but he covers other people's songs. So you don't want to be, you know, have someone on, you know, you don't want to have John Prine on your target, you know, because
Right.
he's got plenty of his own songs. He doesn't need
But
yours.
like a Taj Mahal.
Yeah, yeah.
Taj is a
Some
good example.
someone who covers other people's songs.
Yeah.
And so I got that almost happened, and then I also, true story, it sounds like a bunch of bullshit, but I met the former A&R guy for Arista Records,
Right.
and I won't drop any names, but he was out there slugging it out with us, you know, on the singer-songwriter circuit. And I asked him one day, and I said, well, I'll drop his name, Wyatt Easterly. If you ever get to hear him, he's really good. He wrote Modern Day Drifter, I think, and Montgomery covered that song. But but Wyatt's biggest fame was he was eventually A&R for Arista in Nashville, and he told me some stories, you know.
Oh,
But we're at this booking conference one time, and by this time we knew each other pretty good, and we had taken a break and gone to the cafeteria, and he says, and I asked him, I said, Wyatt, given where you've been, why are you out here slugging it out with the rest of us? He says, Dana, everything I do now is more real than what I did then.
Oh, wow.
I thought that was an amazing answer.
Yeah. Age and wisdom, right?
Yeah. And I'll tell you a story that I think you'll enjoy that he told me. When he was A&R for Arista, the street singer used to bring him, not a street singer, but a guy on the street. He
Right.
wasn't like exactly homeless, but he was a little crazy, and he didn't really have his stuff together, but he was a good songwriter. And so Wyatt would listen to him occasionally, and so the guy would bring in a cassette of some of his latest songs. And this one session that Wyatt was telling me about, Wyatt was listening to the tape, and he turns to the guy and goes, who's playing guitar on here? And the guy told him, and they went ahead and continued listening. And it was just a session guy in Nashville. And then he turns again and goes, who's singing on this? And the guy told him, same guy, session guy.
Yeah.
It's Keith Urban.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Before he had made it big, and he was doing session work, cutting other people's demos. And so anyway, Wyatt he signed Keith Urban to his first record deal.
Oh, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
So he
So-
wasn't homeless anymore, I bet.
No. No, well, it wasn't the homeless guy that got signed. It was Keith Urban. But maybe
Right,
Keith...
he got his song.
Well, yeah, and maybe he helped the homeless guy out.
I bet he did.
Let's hope.
I bet he did, because Keith's a nice guy.
Yeah.
I think so.
So anyway, my point in telling those stories is that was my goal, and I was getting close. But then streaming came along. Just knocked the shit out of everything, you know.
Yeah.
There was a house concert. Are you familiar with Harmony House Concerts in Ravenna, Texas?
No, I don't think so. I haven't heard. Have you heard of that, Randy?
No.
Nope.
They're right up on the Oklahoma border. Anyway, they get a lot of the artists coming from Nashville down like to Dallas to do,
Right.
and they're really smart because they run their house concerts on Sunday. So
Oh, okay.
you know, and so but anyway, they were telling me a story about singer-songwriters they knew that had been in Nashville and had recently moved back to Oklahoma, moved out of Nashville, because even though they had recently gotten a couple cuts on the latest Faith Hill album, they were making pennies. So that dream just went.
The publishing company makes all the money in Nashville.
What's that?
The publishing company makes
Yeah.
all the money in Nashville.
Yeah, yeah. And so anyway,
Leave there.
so when that was the dream, the goal back then was to connect with enough people and try to get someone to cover my songs.
Right.
And but then eventually COVID hit. I went back to California and I felt stuck. I wanted to be back on the road. Now I'm on the road because I simply enjoy it.
Yeah.
I love doing this. I love playing for these kind of audiences. I don't play clubs, bars, coffee houses. They're not fun. And I do this exclusively, and then I'll do festivals.
So where do you go from here?
I have a house concert in Longview this Saturday night,
Oh, okay.
which I'm going to do.
Wonderful.
And then I'll go back. I'll go back to Amarillo because there were some friends that weren't there when I came through and want to see them. And then I'll go back to California. And and I'll be here every fall. That's my goal.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. You ought to call your buddies in Amarillo and say, hey, see about getting me a gig while I'm out there. I bet they could call and find something for you.
Well, yes. I got real tired of playing Amarillo.
Oh, you did? Okay. Well, maybe not then.
No. So what I did this time, Panhandle, are you familiar with where Panhandle is? Mm-hmm. It's kind of like about a half hour northwest of Amarillo. Mm-hmm. So this time I came through and they have done a gorgeous job of refurbishing this building into a listening room.
Oh, nice.
And so I played there on this last Saturday night.
Oh, okay.
Big old storm hit.
Oh, no.
I mean, big storm.
Wow.
But anyway, so I did that, and I'll probably play Amarillo next year when I come through.
Yeah.
I felt like I overplayed it a little bit, you know.
Oh, when you lived here, or
Yeah.
lived in Amarillo.
Yeah. Everyone knew all my stories.
Oh,
That's
well.
not good.
We'll have to give you some new exciting adventures
That's
to talk
it.
about, right?
That's it.
Well, I can't tell you how great it's been having you here. We've really enjoyed
Thank you.
your music, your songs, and talking to you and getting to know a little bit about you.
Yes. And
And-
kudos to you guys. What a cool thing.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
And it's good to know that you're back in the fall. That helps for, calendars down line. So
Yes.
that's great.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing about booking yourself on tours is, knowing what you're going to do a year from now or a year and a half from
Sure.
now.
Yeah.
And house concerts don't typically repeat. They often don't repeat within a year. It's often 2 years,
Yeah.
18
It's about
months.
18 months. Yeah.
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 18, yeah. And so that makes it a little difficult. So that's why getting the opportunity to be here with you guys, maybe come back next year and do a show for you. And then if I'll do another show. I didn't play at Harmony House this year.
Oh,
I played
okay.
last year. So now I'm scheduled to play there next year
Right.
in October.
Right. Yeah.
And so I just, my goal is to just keep building the circuit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So thank you.
You bet. Thank you. And thank you to our studio audience and our listeners out there. Keep tuning in. You are in the music room.
I love this. Can I talk now?